more deep breath and we'll jump into today's sermon. Beautiful. I have no idea what I'm going to title it. So it is an untitled sermon so far, but I feel like as we speak, it's going to naturally reveal itself. But we definitely have a theme going today. And the topic is going to be about transmutation. I've been writing about this concept in my next book, Living Earth. And transmutation is, of course, another way of saying transformation. But we view it as much more dynamic and an active principle that is happening daily that we're invoking in our lives. But to start with, let me go ahead and share with you this idea. So how many of you consciously think, or how many of you consciously view yourself in a positive light each morning? Or the opposite? Just kind of answer that in your own mind, and maybe even write the answer down. But just like in the morning, each time you wake up, each day you wake up, how many of you consciously actually picture yourself in a positive light? So that's the first question to really reflect upon. And then the second part of that question is, how many of you consciously activate the awareness of viewing yourself as, or in alignment with your mind, body, heart, and spirit working in tandem, to where you're imagining yourself through the rest of the day and you notice yourself at peace, strong, confident, yet calm. And so you know that you recognize that your emotions are in alignment, your thoughts are in alignment, your actions, your behaviors, all those things coming together. Do you view yourself in that kind of light where you're setting up that intention for the morning? Or, this might be more common for many of us, we might just roll out of bed and roll into the day, and whatever residue energy that maybe was happening yesterday comes with us into the next day, or we instantly turn on the news, or we instantly check social media, or we instantly start feeling the pressure of all of the to-dos that are gonna happen. So are we really taking that time in the morning to view ourselves in a positive light, or is it negative? And are we taking even just 5 minutes in the morning that we're setting up the day, viewing ourselves in alignment, or are we already jumping to the day ahead? And so this is just a very important observation. I've kind of talked around it before, in various sermons, but this is such an important observation because you're already setting up the way that your energy is going to be directed during the day. And that's kind of the understanding of transmutation. We are consciously directing our stream of consciousness, or let's clean that sentence up. We are deliberately directing our stream of consciousness at the beginning of the day, rather than allowing just us to be a leaf blowing in the wind, to where whatever strikes us, whatever triggers us in the day, that's where our stream goes. Who's had a day like that to where things just naturally happen, as is life, and then whatever naturally happens, your mind goes in that direction, and then if something else happens, your mind goes in that direction, if something else happens, your mind goes in that direction, and you're feeling this emotion, that emotion, this emotion, and there's just no rhyme or reason. You're just I think most of us are, when we don't practice this, we're very reactive creatures. So whatever's happening outside in life, we react to it, and that kind of determines the mood of the day. So if it's a happy, eventful day, you're happy. If it's a sad, eventful day, you're sad. Fill in the blank, you could put in any emotion there. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and take a deep breath. That's just setting up the platform for today. So I always like to say that, or I don't always like to say, I'm just starting to now say it. I've said it before a few times, but Dunisha, the spirituality that we teach here, it's very homework based. Not even just if you're in the student program or not, but just like, this is a spiritual path that is not just about believing in something outside of yourself, a greater power. We don't really give a shit about that. You can or you can't. We welcome you all. But what we really care about is how we're invoking and inviting harm into our personal lives through our psychology, and how we're invoking, inviting, or directing, projecting harm onto the people around us. And so that's what we mean by this as a spirituality with homework, because it's a constant practice and reflection. And what I just shared, setting up the day in that manner, you're already setting up your day for greater mindfulness to occur than just being a reactive creature towards whatever tendencies, or whatever behaviors, or whatever experiences manifest in your life. So let's breathe that in. Okay, one more question. Go ahead and write this down if you want. How many of you say thank you to your body every morning? How many of you say thank you to your mind every morning? If you're someone like me that has a bit of neurosis or struggled with depression, you might view the mind as the enemy, or maybe anxiety, you might view the mind as kind of an enemy. But it's one of our greatest tools. So how many of us actually say thank you for it in the morning? How many of us actually say thank you for our body in the morning? How many of us actually say thank you to our just self, to life? And think about how life-changing that would be if we started every single day with gratitude towards our very existence, versus how many people, especially here in America, struggle with depression, struggle with clouds of sadness, of loneliness, struggle with clouds of feelings of separation, anxiety, anger, frustration, etc. And it's almost like, who's ever felt like this? I just want to get through the day. And so we feel that pressure of just wanting to get through the day. Are we really taking the time to appreciate this gift? And when we forget that, it changes our behavior. When we remember to do these things, it changes our behavior. Our consciousness. I'm a big fan of this whole thing called consciousness, where it really is the sculptor of reality. So let's take a breath. So we're going to do a little transition piece here, and I'll be reading shortly a paragraph from this book. But raise your hand if you've ever heard of the elephant parable, where 4 blindfolded men, or they might say 4 blind men, it's different depending on who's saying it, touches an elephant from different angles. Yeah, some of you are nodding your head. It's such a great story. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, 4 blindfolded men come up to an elephant, never seen an elephant, don't know what an elephant is, and they come up to an elephant from 4 different directions, and they all touch a piece of it. So let's say one person touches an ear, one person touches the trunk, one person touches the leg, and one person touches the tail. And so the person touching the tail, of course, there's this little fluffy poof at the end of it. So this person has to describe the elephant. And so he says, there's this long piece of leathery skin with a poof at the end. It's almost like a feather duster. And then the other person touches the solid leg of it, and they say it almost feels like a tree trunk. And then the other person touches the giant, very thin, I guess for an elephant it's not super thin, but it's thinner than the rest of the body, the ear. And then they're talking about how it's such a weird leathery feeling, but it just keeps going on, and it's very round. And then the other person touches the trunk, and he's like, I don't know what the fuck that is. That'd be hard to describe. It's like an octopus thing, and it's going everywhere, and it's breathing, and they're all required to explain this elephant. And they all are giving a different story, aren't they? Because they're not allowed to touch any more of it. And so what's fascinating about this is that they're both right and wrong at the same time. Because the experience that they're having and what they're touching is 100% accurate. But they also have a misperception because they're not able to see the fuller reality at hand. And so every single one of us, anytime we get trapped in an emotion, guess what we're doing? We're being one of those blindfolded individuals to where it's very accurate what we're experiencing in the moment, but because we're always lacking so much more information at hand, we really are in misperception. Does that make sense? And so that is why in Dunisha we are so adamant and we are so gentle at the same time of wanting to make sure that we're visiting the teachings daily and making sure that we're having a daily practice, because we as humans, I don't mean to shatter the glass here, but we're pretty much born to fail. Really think about it. Because of the way we have our mind, we have this ability to always have misperception. And we can literally build our entire lives on a misperception. But at the same time, we're also building our lives on reality, in fact. But when we recognize that we just have an inherent ability to have misperception, then it really humbles us. Because how often do we claim to know things for certain? And maybe I'm not talking about like global things, some people claim, but other people don't. But I'm even just meaning claiming so certain on how you feel about someone or feel about something or how you were wronged and harmed. And we hold on to that and we create that as the foundation of our reality. Well, let me tell you, any person that's been on my couch over the past 10 years doing life coaching and they were so confident and certain about something, I take a hammer to that reality. Whether it's positive or negative, we always kind of shatter that certainty, because the certainty always ends up getting us hurt later on.
That's right. Crush those dreams.
Crush those dreams, baby. And it's beautiful. And in Buddhism in particular, they're really big on making sure that you're seeing reality as it is and not adding layers of misperceptions on top of it. Isn't that beautiful? And Living Earth, I wrote this one sentence, I'll probably butcher it, but it was almost like akin to, the moment you stop seeing the tree, you actually see the tree. Because think about it. The moment you stop seeing the tree, you actually see the tree. Because so many of us are taught and put labels onto things. And once we label them, they then fit into a notion of what we think that they are forever. But we're not actually able to see the true essence of certain things anymore. For example, let's use a person. I don't like that person. Boom. You just pigeonholed them into an idea, and you're not able to see any more of their true reality. You're not able to see them beyond the bully maybe that they were. You're not able to see them beyond that the person that broke your heart. You're not able to see them beyond ... fill in the blank. Does that make sense? Misperception, 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 misperception. But the beautiful thing is that we have a huge amount of control over this. Now, when we're not practicing, it just happens. There's really no control there. But when we are practicing, we're aware that this is happening and we can change the pattern. Let's breathe that in. So it's just a paragraph I'll read real quick. This is from Joyfully Together, The Art of Building a Harmonious Community by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's going to say Sangha in it, and Sangha is just another word for community. And I believe this is one of the intro books that Plum Village has their novice monastics start reading, so that when they come into monastic life of living together with brothers and sisters, that they know the principles of building a healthy, harmonious community. So when we do not show willingness to correct ourselves, others may lose faith in us. They may feel that their efforts are in vain and it's not worthwhile to come close to us. In a community of practice, we rely on the fact that every member of the community is practicing. That is what holds us together and makes us a Sangha. Seeing the sincere efforts of our sister, we are heartened. We feel encouraged that she is also practicing to transform herself. We feel that we can rely on her. We can have faith in her and trust that she will support us. We'll support the Sangha with her practice and transformation. If someone is not willing to practice, is not willing to transform his or her shortcomings, they will exclude him or herself from the Sangha body. Take a deep breath in, please. It sounds kind of harsh, especially for this book, because Thich Nhat Hanh is, it's very gentle in their approach. But if someone goes to a monastery and they're just like, I'm not here to practice, they will be eventually, just politely asked to not live there anymore. Because to create a family unit, to create a community, to create a Sangha, to create a monastery, it really does work. And to create freaking society, it really does require people coming together and cultivating some form of platform. So we all have societal rules. Like once you get on the freeway or the highway right there, you're gonna be complying to some standard. But what I found interesting about this is that a lot of times we might have an idea of monks as just, or even just anyone that's super spiritual, that seems to have their shit together. You have this idea that it just comes easy. We might have this idea that it comes easy. or that they were just born that way. But what's interesting is that if you actually go deeper into the teachings and you look into the monastic life and you look behind, again, we're only seeing one part of the trunk, one part of the elephant, and maybe it's just the piece, and we're not seeing the massive amount of work that's going on behind the scenes. And so this is what this paragraph really teaches us, is that at a monastery, it is continuous daily practice, and not just meditation, not just chanting sutras, or even for those of you who might have more of a Christian background, not just reading the Bible. It is actively looking into our own psychology and healing our shit. And here's the fascinating thing, that you might be someone that cries every single day for 10 years, and you're in that monastery, and your tears might irritate your brothers and sisters. That's okay, because they recognize that you're practicing. And so we're not saying don't feel any negative emotion. We're saying continue looking at it and working on it with an intention of transmuting it, if that makes sense. Because that's the difference. Even if it takes us 10 years to heal one thing, and we just keep showing up to our student training, or we keep showing up to life coaching, or even we just keep showing up here, we just keep showing up for ourselves, that is doing the work. What this is talking about is just blatantly denying that you have any work to do and you're not willing to look at it anymore. Do you see the difference there? And so it's really a matter of leaning in or leaning out and just running away. Interesting, isn't it? And so really be honest with yourselves, because I really haven't seen pretty much any of you since the quarantine. And so I'm inviting you to write down a number on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the most optimal. How would you rate your own individual practice these past couple months without us gathering weekly, or without some of you meeting one-on-one in the student training? How would you rate your practice? And for those of you, maybe if it's your first time here, you can, based off of today's teachings, you can kind of just ask yourself, how much have I really tapped into my own alignment, and how much have I been really working on my stuff? And this has nothing to do with like the whole being in quarantine and now's the time to clean your house, or now's the time to finish that book. I'm not talking about that at all. I would be giving this message any day of the week, really, whether or not there's a quarantine. And here's the big catcher. This number is not meant to make you feel guilt at all. There is no shame involved. There really is no judgment involved. I'm not gonna have you, but if each of you went around and gave me the number, it wouldn't trigger anything in me. There is no judgment. All that number is to help bring your mind back to the awareness of, am I actually showing up for myself daily? And involved in showing up for myself daily, it allows me to show up for my loved ones more. Because if I'm not doing that, well, I'm sure all of you have had drama in your life, and you know where drama stems from. Not working on our shit. So let's take a deep breath in, please. Oh, let me look at the time. So let's take another deep breath. We'll just take about a minute and just absorb and just reflect and just allow the noble silence. And so, based off of everything I shared today, I recognize that I'm not like explaining what the practice is. I just say the practice. But again, this sermon is more about just the inspiration and recognizing our own alignment and ability to transmute. Because if I went into various practices, that would be another 20 minutes, and then another 20 minutes, and then another 20 minutes, and then another 20 minutes. So I'm going to disclaim for everyone watching at home and for all of you here is that you likely all have some form of spiritual practice. And for those of you that maybe you don't really have one now, or you're new to these teachings, but likely you were probably brought up with one to some extent. Maybe it is just praying. Maybe it is just saying please and thank you. Maybe it's blessing your food. Maybe it is just thinking positive thoughts in the morning. Maybe it is starting a journaling practice. It could literally be absolutely anything. Obviously in Dunisha, we have some hardcore student training that we do. And then there's a lot of deep introspection that goes on, and like we develop practices, and living peace, I don't have it with me right now, but living peace has 9 practices in it. So even if you've never heard these words before, you could just type in on Google and then just say, how can I cultivate more mindfulness in my life? How can I cultivate more kindness in my life? How can I cultivate more peace in my life? And there is an unlimited amount of information. And really, it's not a matter of what it is. It's a matter of being consistent with it. Because anything that we're consistent with, we eventually develop more skill with. And so this is not saying that the Dunisha approach is the correct approach. It's just one approach. And everyone has their own. So, and that's the beautiful thing about consciousness, because anything that you're focusing on, it just naturally has a quality of growing. And that's just a nice reminder. So let's take a deep breath in. And I'll go ahead and be closing our sermon out. One more breath. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Well, thank you for everyone at home joining us in. Tomorrow we're getting internet in here, so hopefully we'll be able to post this video live on Facebook, and then I will download it, and then I'll put it on YouTube for people not on Facebook, and then I'll share it. And of course, links are down below if anyone is able to donate. It always definitely drastically helps our Sangha grow. Thank you so much, and blessed be.